FDA approved the first electronic pill, if I can call it like that. It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet, and once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance, the insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
We have held strategic dialogues with key industries: cars, chemicals, steel, pharmaceuticals, defense, agriculture. In each sector, the message is the same. To protect jobs, we need to make business in Europe easier. A digital euro, for example, will make it easier for companies and consumers alike.
Okay, I've gone down the rabbit hole. I want to know about ETs. This was one promise of the administration. We get more visibility. There's a big documentary, The Age of Disclosure, that's coming out on Amazon Prime. I actually don't know what the Chiron says. I don't know that ETs exist, but I think they could. And I think that the government isn't telling us everything they know. So I hope we get a little bit more visibility here.
Once you've got everything under one roof and you've got all your ID together in one place, it means you can be switched off at the touch of a button. So they brought this system in Thailand, and suddenly, like simultaneously, over 3 million people had their bank accounts shut down. Thailand has become a case study for the use of biometric data in every facet of life. Every banking transaction is monitored and scrutinised. Any perceived discrepancy is flagged as fraud and punished without due process. Regulations have overwhelmed the system, resulting in a full-fledged banking crisis. Thousands of accounts are frozen each week. Panic has ensued. Retailers are no longer accepting cards, demanding payment in cash, as they too are worried that they will be removed from the banking system. Confidence in the government and the entire banking system evaporated.
I can't tell you how many people I hear, I don't want to know about the bad stuff. I don't want to hear about what the control grid is doing. I don't want to hear about the poison that's in the food or the poison that's in the injections, because it's too hard, it's too depressing. But at the same time, what I'm seeing all over the country are people who went through that doorway. They said, I'm going to face what's really going on. I'm going to grieve about it, but then I'm going to make the changes that I can under my control. And they're thriving. And so there's a bifurcation in the population between, somebody who's become a prisoner of the machinery and the propaganda, and people that are breaking out. So in bike racing, we call it, it's a breakout or a breakaway. They're breaking away and they're thriving. And so the good news is you can do it. The bad news is the doorway you have to walk through is facing facts.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Monday, October 20th, 2025. And once again, we're going out of the matrix into prime reality. Thanks for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in the live chat. All you wonderful people in there. Of course, our wonderful moderator, Raymond, aka Two Steps Behind, is here today. And my beautiful, fantastic wife, Christine, as inspired in the live chat. All right, folks, let's dive into it. We have, this has been labeled by many people as the post-truth era. So while some of us have thought of this world as a post-truth era for a very long time, many, many, many people in the last 5 years have experienced this and are sort of seeing a world where there is no tangible truth any longer. And I sense not only the frustration, but sort of also the confusion in that, or how do we move forward? How do we know what is true and what isn't true? And all kinds of tools are appearing on the scene. People are using AI detection tools and are looking for either technologies or psychological techniques, right? There's people out there, really brilliant people, who can teach you how to spot the lies in body language or in wording or in just overall behavior. And I think those tools are extremely valuable. However, really good professional liars, of which there's quite a few, can oftentimes even bypass these behaviors and not give it away. However, we have systems built inside of us that can tell us whether something is true or false, whether something is the truth or a lie. Um, More often than not, these things mainly help us to see whether something is a lie or deception. It doesn't necessarily tell us what the truth is, but it tells us what it's not. So this is, to me, extremely important. Why? Well, we have an alternative media that has exploded over the last 5 years, but in my estimation, in my opinion, over 90% of that alternative media either lies, lies by omission, or is deceived themselves and have a very hard time seeing the big picture or seeing sort of the overarching theme in everything. 10%, I would say, are really, really good. Spot on. So today I want to talk about the tools that you can use, and you don't need any money for that. You don't need to buy anything for that, to sort of, when you hear news, whether alternative or mainstream, whether you read something or the government says something, or there's a new policy coming out, or somebody's saying we have this great new idea like the digital ID system, and it's going to improve everybody's lives. It's going to make everything better. You heard the president of the EU Commission. That's what people are demanding. It's going to make everything easier. So there are people out there who on first sight will say, well, what's the problem, John? Is, digital ID seems really good. You can't fake anything any longer. You can't pretend to be somebody else. We're going to know. And if you have nothing to hide, what's the problem? Yeah, that's exactly the problem. Is there's this childlike, naive thought process. However, the folks that are pushing these things, digital currencies, digital IDs, and this control grid, there's nothing naive about their thinking. There's nothing benevolent about their thinking. This is a malevolent agenda. However, I don't want you to take my word for it. I don't want you to go and say, well, let's see what Inspired's saying. Let's see what David Icke's saying. Let's see what this person's saying. How about the first thing that you do is use the tools that we're going to show you to discern whether something is truthful or not to begin with, and then go deeper. So let's do that. And these are all simple things that everyone can do. However, I would say that it is extremely important that you, even before I put this up, it's extremely important that you get to know yourself a little better. For example, if you rely on what we're going to talk about, some of your body's functions as a truth gauge, well, let's just say you're using a substance, any substance. You could be very sensitive to caffeine. So you use a lot of caffeine, and then you try to use your body as a truth gauge. Might be difficult because your nervous system is highly stimulated, right? You use something like THC. Now your nervous system is otherwise engaged. And so I would encourage everyone to use these tools when you are in a balanced state, when you yourself feel like you're centered. Then these tools come in handy. If you yourself are not centered, that's a dead giveaway that you can't really discern the truth really well. You have to first center yourself. That's what I needed to say. Okay, so now let's go into it without further ado. So number one, the body compass, which is the somatic truth system. It's your nervous system, right? Your nervous system is incredibly tuned in. And how your body reacts instantly, not after you think about it, instantly to something, is usually a very good indicator whether something is truthful, positive, or overall good. Now, like I said, if you yourself are in an unbalanced state, or you tend to be already fearful about something or worried about something or just having problems right now, then that's not a good gauge, because you're already in a state of uneasiness. But let's say you're in a balanced state. You've just come out of meditation in the morning, or a prayer or breath work, and now you go and consume some sort of news or media, social media, whatever, and some news hit you. Now you can watch your body react. What is your body doing, right? Is it opening up? Is it expansive? Does it feel like everything is like here? Or do you feel like you're slouching and you're contracting and you're pushing together? So this is a very good indicator whether the information that you're seeing is truthful or not. Now, even difficult information, even dark information, even sort of very black pill information can actually cause your nervous system to have an openness to it, because it senses the truth in the information and the significance for you to hear it. So this is when, on very rare occasions, if somebody who is very well balanced presents even dark information, your nervous system doesn't shut down or doesn't get into this hyper nervous state, because the person that's delivering the information sort of has this balanced aura about them, and then you can actually work with the information. However, more often than not, when you see the news, whichever news station it is, or when you see a government press conference, or when you see somebody telling you how this new AI thing is going to positively revolutionize the world and make everything better, and you feel this uneasiness in the pit of your stomach, or you feel your chest getting tighter, those are all good signals that something fishy is going on. So you really pay attention to that before you even start thinking about something. Okay. This is what we really need for everything moving forward. And this is the scale of consciousness, or map of consciousness, as it was developed by consciousness researcher Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote, Power versus Force, or Truth versus Lies, or Falsehood. Very, very powerful books. But this is the scale of consciousness. So he developed a logarithmic scale that he developed with the help of applied kinesiology. So muscle testing, and this is how accurate our body is. Our body, if you know how to use muscle testing or applied kinesiology, actually pretty much always knows the truth. It's very, very cool, but it requires a lot of practice and calibration to do it accurately. So here you have this, and you can see in the lower spheres of consciousness, we're talking about shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. All the way where you see this red line on the screen, everything that's below the red line is very problematic. Now, the average on Earth for the longest time, the average level of consciousness was below the 200 line. And this is why we have sort of struggled for such a long time with warfare and deception and lies and secret societies and slavery and abuse and all these things. So everything that's happening below this red line, you could basically say, is in a state of inversion, deception, falsehood. I mean, these lower frequencies, it's not that people that are angry can't see some of the truth, but anger can only see some of the truth. Anger can never see the whole truth, right? So when you, for example, watch a video, let's say a world leader speaks and they're suggesting something to you. They're suggesting a necessary change. If you were to watch that video and then look at this scale and just tune in for a moment, and then you would try to categorize, what are the feelings that this leader is speaking from? What are his feelings or her feelings? Is it somewhere pride? Is it fear? Is it trying to evoke fear? Is he or she trying to evoke anger, right? Division, all these things, or pride even. So then this is a low vibrational operation. It's always birthed from these lower frequencies, and hence you could call that falsehood or a lie. Now, if, however, you feel courage, real courage, or willingness, goodwill, acceptance, real, not fake. You have to feel it. You have to feel, oh, this feels real, or reason, or even in some very rare cases, you feel true love emanating from that leader. Now, then we're in higher levels of consciousness, and there's more truth than falsehood in the message delivered. When I use this technique, I can say with a lot of certainty that 90% or more of the messages, the news, the government policies that are coming out are more falsehood than truth, are more lies than truth. Almost all of them are below this 200 consciousness line. So this is something, if you take a screenshot of this or just look for the map of consciousness and you save this image, you can pull it up more often and then compare and contrast. And you will see that very often you can basically discard that message and say, oh, this is most likely a lie or falsehood, or more falsehood than truth. This another powerful, easy technique, the higher self check-in. So your highest self is non-physical. It's the part of you that dwells in higher realms, if you will, but you have always access to. So now if you sit down and take a few deep breaths and say, okay, if I check in with my highest self, my wisest self, my most true self, the self that isn't concerned with survival, with bills, with worries and doubts and fears that exists in eternity. Okay, and then you listen. What is that higher self, that highest version of you, telling you about what you're watching or reading about this message? And it comes almost instantaneously, and you would be surprised. Now, your reasoning, your mental, your brain could sort of look at this information that you're consuming and saying, well, maybe there's truth to it. You know, this sounds plausible, whatever. But as soon as you tune into the higher self, you get a clear knowing. No, this is not true. You get this very clear knowing, or you hear an inner voice, or you get a vision, or your feelings shift, your emotions shift in the moment. That is your highest self. That's your truth gauge. That's a truth meter. If it says no, trust it. Trust it. We recently had a situation where something that we would do every single year, like clockwork, twice a year, never even a question. We would do that twice a year, every year. Something our family was looking forward to, something that's beautiful, always joy. And all of a sudden, around this event, we didn't have a good feeling. All of us, believe it or not, all of us got, independently of each other, a weird feeling. Even distant family members got a weird feeling. And so at first we didn't listen because it's a tradition. But then, the signs became so clear that we had to say, okay, this is not supposed to happen this year. So this is also intuition that you can use when you have to make a decision. That's also something, that I would encourage you to use this in any situation. All righty. So then we have the love versus control scan, right? And this is very, very fast. So if something is suggested to you, like now so often, digital IDs, digital currencies, this is the conversation of our time, really, why we should use these technologies or why we should implement AI into everything. Ask yourself, does this message come from a place of love or from a place of control, fear, manipulation? Every decision can only come from two places. It's either a place of love or a place of some variation of fear. And then you go, okay, I'm tuning in. This is the message. This is what they're trying to sell me here. And you're giving me the love language. You're giving me all the, but do I feel that? Is this really coming from a place of love, or is it coming from a place of fear? And you can ask two questions. Does this empower me or make me dependent? Does this empower you or make you dependent? Let's go back to digital ID because it's discussed everywhere. What is the empowerment factor? So a digital ID, and the clear suggestion in all documents, laws, and policies is that everything, every aspect of your life will be tied to that digital ID. Does that empower you, or does that make you dependent? What if you don't want a smartphone? What if you don't want any kind of device? You know what the next suggestion will be? Don't worry, we'll just put a little teeny tiny thing in you, or a digital tattoo, or some other form, right? So don't worry. But is this truly empowering, or does it cause incredible dependence on systems? Let's talk about today's global internet outage. Maybe you haven't heard about it, but the Amazon servers today for a while shut down for hours and are still partially down, and all connected banking, social media apps, shopping apps, government services were also inaccessible or very, 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 very slow. So if your life depends on you having digital verification and access, and this happens, well, your life stands still. You can't do anything. So is this more dependence, or is this more self-empowerment? Or does this bring more freedom to me, or does it take it away? Does it take freedom away? These are very simple questions, but incredibly powerful. We have a problem in our society. We have a problem in our psyche. So, and I want to quickly pause this presentation to talk about it and then go back on. So, Dr. Nels, a German researcher and scientist, was the one who really prominently put this out there. Our neocortex, frontal lobe in our brain that has specific, or sorry, the hippocampus, I should say, hippocampus has very specific, a sort of a very specific function in our brain. And part of it is to compare new information to stored information. And so basically it goes through a filtration system. It makes an analysis, and then it allows you with the function of the hippocampus to come to certain conclusions, right? So because of various factors, both environmental and behavioral, over the last years, the advent of the internet, smartphones, social media, AI, environmental factors, everything, on average, the hippocampus activity has come down significantly. Partially, you can explain it by the average behavior of, for example, scrolling. So scrolling it's like, you remember TV channel zapping, like you would just go from one channel to another. So scrolling is the same behavior but on complete steroids, because you consume the information, but your brain doesn't have time to fully analyze the information and then engage with it and sort of integrate it and come to certain conclusions. No, who in the world would have thought that we could watch like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of compressed information that actually would require a lot of thinking? And because on average people don't do that any longer, they're losing this ability to think. So when we stop, breathe, tune in, put our hands on our heart or solar plexus space, and we ask ourselves or our higher selves a few simple questions. Does this, if this were to come true, would it bring me more freedom, or would it make me more dependent? Very simple questions that tell you the truth about something or the lie about something. And we have to consciously make an effort to do that. Very, very important. Okay. Next one. The long-term frequency check, also a very potent tool. So truth always stands the test of time, and truth can never disappear, by the way. It's only the observer, us, who can either choose or not choose to look for the truth. But the truth truly never disappears. It's always there. It's always readily available. So now you can ask yourself a question. Let's say we just now heard or saw in banking apps in the UK have started doing this. The banking apps show people what their purchases, what kind of carbon footprint they create. Because the idea is, and this has been discussed in a World Economic Forum and by major banks and major institutions, the idea is to tie your digital ID, of course, with, because you need digital ID to do anything and everything. So then it calculates your carbon footprint and it tells you what you can or cannot do more of this month because you've used up your carbon allowance. And this is not me saying this. This is literally what this is all about. And so then if you ask this question, if the whole world followed this message or action for 10 years, would humanity become more conscious, more free, healthy, and connected? Or more divided, weaker, addicted, controlled, or sick? Right? So let's just say if the whole of humanity used digital ID, digital currencies, would we become more conscious, more free, more healthy, more connected, or more controlled, weaker, divided? Well, one of the things that would immediately happen, one of the first things is this brings about behavior modification like this. Why? Because when you not only sense, but you know for a fact that everything that you do is tracked, saved, analyzed, and used against you, which is always the case, you immediately start to self-censor. You start to alter your behavior, which is the whole purpose of it from their perspective. So does that make you more free? Does that make you more connected or more conscious? It's a question to ask. So truth builds, and it's clearly it's this expansive positive thing, and lies are part of a weakening and destructive system. Then this is one that we have used over and over again when our children were growing up, and when Christine and I had to face those difficult conversations with fellow parents or teachers or whatever who was in our field. And when we had to determine whether something was good, truthful, or not, we would say, okay, would I teach this belief, this policy? Would I teach this to our children and then explain to them, this is what life is. This is how it works. This is the truth. And we have seen this in acquaintances that had children, same age at the same time. And they would say, well, we got to tell our children that this is the truth because this is how life works. And imagine that you introduce something to a pure child and you're telling them something that is actually a lie, but they lose their purity because of it, because they believe you, because you're their everything. So even if you have grown up children or no children, but if you ask yourself, would I teach a small, pure child this? Would I tell them this? And something tells you no, then most likely it's not the truth. It's not good. It's not positive. A very important test, and one that I would encourage everyone to use. Now, I would encourage you to save this show, share it with others, because the more tools that we have, internal tools, and this is the whole purpose of this show, is to show you that we don't need fact checkers. We don't need others to tell us what is or isn't truthful. We don't need AI to do analysis for us. We don't need anyone outside of us. We have a perfect truth gauge. We just need to learn to activate it, to listen to it, and to trust it, right? And do it with little things. Do it with little things that are fairly inconsequential. So, for example, if you want to know whether a food is good for you, and let's just take a blatant one. Let's just take one of the big chocolate bars like Snickers or Twix or whatever. Your brain already knows it's not good for you, but when you tune in with your higher self, or when you ask yourself, if I ate this every day for the next 10 years, Or would I teach my child that this is a healthy food? How simple is the answer for that? The answers come immediately, and it immediately tells you, no, this is not good. Now, do we trust it? Do we listen to it? Well, it's a whole different question, right? That's the self-responsibility. But I would love to encourage you to use these tools on a daily basis and sharpen your perception. The more you do it, the easier it is in the long run to sense these things, and in a few months, when you do this every day, it will become so apparent to you again. And then we can stop fighting over whether this or that new policy or new thing that's been introduced to humanity is actually good for us. And we can rather focus on the things that truly help us move forward. And like I always say, the more self-reliant, the more self-responsible we become. That is truth in all areas of our lives. The more choices we have, we can opt in or opt out, whatever we want, because we have choices. And that's what this is supposed to encourage. And here's a bonus tip, and I would encourage you to try it. So one of the things that we have observed since we have lived in a permanent high consciousness field is, and that's the FLFE field. The beauty is that a few things are almost impossible in that field. For example, to hold a grudge. Forgiveness is so easy in the field. Like when we have an argument or a discussion or a heated discussion, it doesn't take but an hour and everybody's making up again. But also, for some reason, when you are in this high consciousness field at all times, it is easier for you to discern truth and to accept it, right? Truth about yourself, truth about the world, truth about others. It's like the truth wants to be seen when you're in a high consciousness field. It wants to present itself to you. It gives you every opportunity. And so this is one thing that we've seen, that when people spend time in the high consciousness field, in their homes, in their beautiful love zone, people that are in the FLFE field for an extended period of time, the changes in their lives, the positive changes, tend to become a little easier to make. There's more opportunity, there's more possibility. And so this is one of the reasons why we love this service, because it's literally birthed from truth and it leads to truth. And that's like, I can't think of anything that would be better than that. So if you haven't yet, or you've been on the fence about it, I would encourage you to give it a try. And you can try it. You don't need a credit card or a debit card or anything. It's a gift. It's a 15-day gift to try that service, and you can activate it within the next few minutes. If you go to highconsciousnessfield.com or click the link in the description, you can give it a try for 15 days, no strings attached, and just tune in and see what you feel. So the idea is to close this and to bring this home. The idea is that we can have people that write books and are researchers and discover things. But I would never suggest that you take anyone's word at face value, including mine. Don't, because even if you never feel that I would want to deceive you, which I don't, I could have an off day. I could have problems. I could be in an imbalanced state, and so could anyone else. Trust this, yourself. And with every information that reaches you, do these tests, do these experiments, and you will see how much will land on the garbage pile. And that little that remains, that's good, that's truth, that's positive, that's actionable information. And if we all did that, man, within a few short days, I mean, our behaviors, our actions, our choices would change accordingly, and for the better. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. Yes, before we tune off, there's always this one more thing. Please join us on Locals, inspired.locals.com. Christine and I will do a show together there in a few short minutes. It's called Honey Talks. That's what the show's, and it's the only show where you can see her and interact with her for now. And we also recently started sharing about our life on the farm. It's called Farm Tales. We share about the chickens and the goats and the gardens and just thoughts that have to do with the farm and the land and self-sufficiency. And I think we're 25 videos in. So if that interests you, join us on inspired.locals.com. It's a subscriber platform, so there is a monthly fee, but it's like 2 cups of coffee. So, I think it's a very good bang for your buck. All right, friends. Much love, many blessings, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Christine and I would love to invite you into something really special. We started a new show on Locals called Farm Tales, where we share the real stories from our homestead, the animals, the garden, the beauty, and even the funny mishaps along the way. Just like all of our work, it's about living consciously in harmony with nature and creating a life of true freedom. Please click the link down below and join us for Farm Tales on Locals. We would love to see you there.